For over 40 years, Iran has stood in profound opposition to the United States. And many of the US's moves throughout the Middle East have a lot to do with Iran, one way or another. Here are some key moments in the long history of US-Iran tensions. 1953, Iran's then Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh is overthrown in a CIA-backed coup after his efforts to nationalize the country's oil industry. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the US-favored Shah of Iran, comes to power. The US supports the Shah with hundreds of millions of dollars of military and economic aid over the next quarter century. 1979, the Iranian Revolution deposes the Shah. Returning from exile, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini seizes power and famously calls the US the Great Satan. That same year, members of a revolutionary group storm and occupy the US embassy and take 52 American diplomats hostage for 444 days.
American citizens, soldiers, and diplomats, bound, blindfolded, paraded before the world. Images of humiliation and helplessness sear their way into the hearts and minds of America.
On April 7, 1980, both countries sever diplomatic relations. American confidence falls. That same year, an 8-year-long war between Iraq and Iran breaks out, in which almost 1.5 million people are killed. The US backs Iraq, giving several $1 billion worth of economic aid, military intelligence, and training. In 1983, a suicide bomber targets a US Marine barracks in the Lebanese capital, Beirut, killing 241 US military personnel. The Iranian-backed Hezbollah is blamed for the bombing and a separate attack on the US embassy in Lebanon. 1 year later, the Reagan administration lists Iran as a state sponsor of terror. 1988, the Iranian Airbus is shot down. An American warship shoots down an Iranian passenger airline, killing all 290 people on board, including 66 children, following some skirmishes between a US ship and Iranian vessels in the Persian Gulf. The US claims it as an accident. The Iranians aren't convinced. 1990s, Iran is accused of supporting a number of Hamas and Hezbollah attacks in the region. 1995, President Bill Clinton places wide-ranging oil and trade sanctions on Iran. 1997, Iran elects the reformist Mohammad Khatami as president, who later calls on both countries to bring down the wall of mistrust in a CNN interview. The US scales back some sanctions. In 2002, relations sour again as President George W. Bush describes Iran, along with North Korea and Iraq, as an axis of evil, and accuses Iran of engaging in a secret nuclear weapons program. In 2005, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad becomes the Iranian president, and his harsh rhetoric sets the tone for the upcoming years.
چه کسانی به بهانه حادثه مشکوک 11 سپتامبر و در واقع برای سلطه بر خاورمیانه و نفت آن افغانستان و عراق را اشغال کردند و میلیون‌ها نفر کشته و مجروح و آواره بر جای گذاشتند.
2006 to 2010, the US succeeds in getting 4 rounds of UN sanctions passed against Iran. They demand that Tehran stop enriching uranium and exporting weapons, and are pressured with some banking, trade and travel restrictions. 2013, Hassan Rouhani assumes the Iranian presidency. A phone call with then-President Barack Obama on a trip to a UN forum in New York becomes the first conversation between US and Iranian heads of state in 30 years. 2015, Iran and international powers, the US, Britain, China, France, Germany, Russia and the European Union finally sign an agreement called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. In the deal, Iran agrees to heavily restrict its nuclear program in return for significant easing of US, UN and EU sanctions. On January 16, 2016, all nuclear-related sanctions on Iran are lifted in response to fulfilling the key conditions of the agreement. Iran's strategy in the region, siding with the Assad regime, has worked. Iran has well-established influence in Syria, and in the wake of the American withdrawal from Iraq, the country has strengthened its connections in Iraq. 2017, with Trump's presidency, things get heated again. Travel bans, missile tests, sanctions, and insults follow one after another. And now the future of the key nuclear deal is at serious risk. Trump threatens to scrap it if the terrible flaws aren't fixed, although Europe begs the US to keep the deal. And the world will learn the fate of the deal on May 12th.